Hello everyone, I am Clara. Welcome to Clara's Story Garden, your cozy escape into the world of enchanting paranormal romance. Sit back, relax, and let the stories sweep you away. Seraphina is 20 when she loses everything: her pack, her mate, her future, everything. It's a rather young age to have your life seemingly end, but that was the reality she faced. She had made her bed, so to speak, sold her soul to the devil with her eyes wide open, or more accurately, she had made her wish and now had to live with the consequences. It's not like she hadn't been warned. Clara had been visiting the magician, asking him to grant her a wish since she was a child. He had always refused, or not exactly refused, for she had learned he couldn't actually refuse a client if they insisted on making their wish. But he had tried to change her mind and had in fact succeeded multiple times over the years. But 3 days ago she had gone back to the shop, that small dark place people avoided looking at too directly as they passed it on the street. She had gone back desperate and determined, and this time she hadn't changed her mind. She had made her wish, knowing fully well what the price would be. She just hadn't expected it to hurt so much afterwards. The pain was everywhere. It hurt having to leave home, to say goodbye to her brother, to her packmates. She had grown up expecting to be their alpha, their leader. She had been someone who mattered and someone who would matter. Now, because of her wish, because of Conri, she was nothing at all, not even herself. Clara is 8 when she decides she'll dedicate the rest of her life to making Isaac's existence a living nightmare. Sure, she is still young, but no amount of emotional maturity that might come with time could ever dull the unadulterated loathing she felt at the sight of his stupid mop of brown hair. Seraphina's own hair was the color of wheat, and it sparkled gold under the sun when it shone brightly in the sky. She took great pride in the fact that her mother had somewhat reluctantly allowed her to grow it long below her shoulders in thick curls. That was nothing short of a miracle, for such an inconvenient hairstyle was generally forbidden among the members of their pack destined to be fighters. But while Seraphina was as powerful a fighter in the making as there ever was, she was also quite vain about her beautiful hair, which is why she hadn't taken well when Conri had stuck a piece of gum he'd been chewing for a suspiciously long time into it. In retrospect, what she hated even more was that she hadn't seen it coming, despite her parents warning her about Conri and his packmates. Seraphina and Conri's respective packs shared a border set deep within the woods, for once upon a time their two clans had been united as one. It had split decades ago when two wolves in line to become alpha had fought over the same mate, ending their friendship and any desire to remain part of the same whole. Thus, what had once been a powerful, thriving pack became two resentful halves that blamed each other for their woes. Clara, her brother, and their wolf mates enjoyed adventuring in the woods and often ran into children from the rival pack, whom they naturally ended up playing with. But when she had innocently told her parents about these games, she had been vehemently discouraged from engaging with the other children ever again, for if they were anything like the other members of the Silver Pine pack, whatever that meant, they weren't worth Clara's time. Especially not Conri, who was the alpha's son. Clara had been taken aback at first, for she had quite liked Conri. He had shown her how to make much better skips with her stones, and could build the best huts she had ever seen. However, since her father had sworn his daughter should be making better friends, had taken a new approach to justify her hangouts with the boy and his friends, which all came down to besting the other pack. And from then on, what had started as innocent fun between the children quickly escalated into more and more aggressive attempts to best each other. Nights were spent establishing strategies, peers were briefed to put more focus and energy into the games, and everyone became seriously competitive, for there was no more room for errors when defeat was nothing short of unacceptable. On the day Conri put his gum in Clara's hair, the game had been one of tree climbing, the goal being to compete with the other team to see who'd reach the top more quickly. All participants' times would be accumulated, and the team with the lower score would win. Unfortunately, performances were looking incredibly tied, and it all came down to the two last contestants to determine the winner. Clara went first, reaching the top in record time, though to her great horror Conri proved himself even more efficient when his turn came. So naturally she did what any wolf would have done and made sure to distract him by throwing a small pebble at his back, leading the boy to miss a step, fall down, and lose the race. That's cheating, Conri protested once he got back on his feet, unharmed, though there was never any real worry there since he was after all a werewolf. Clara stuck her tongue out at him. If it isn't in the rule book, it's not cheating. We don't have a rule book, Conri argued. Exactly. "Now don't be a sore loser and proclaim us the winners," Sera commanded, earning herself an eruption of triumphant screams from her pack mates. She knelt down beside Conri, waiting for him to place a crown of twigs and flowers on her head, no higher honor existing in the children's collective minds. Instead, Conri spat his gum right on top of Sera's head, making her eyes widen in shock. "Sorry, it's lipped," the boy smirked. Sera began to scream, trying to get it out, but only entrapping the gum within her curls further. Conri laughed, thinking the entire spectacle was highly entertaining. Not only because it served Sera right for cheating, but also because he had never thought she'd get so freaked out about something as silly as her hair. Then tears welled up in Sera's eyes, her distressed questions. And for all of 10 seconds he was suddenly very sorry for what he'd done. That is until Sera threw herself at him, smacking him in the jaw. Then all hell broke loose. Seraphina would meet with the magician for the first time a month later, right after her 9th birthday, the first though far from her last. Sera is 11 when she finally gets her proper revenge. It's not like she hadn't tried before then. There had been the stolen pet attempt, during which Sera and her brother had hidden away their own beloved hedgehog, sending themselves a kidnapping note signed by Conri, which forced the false culprit into publicly apologizing for something he'd never done. It was a rather good revenge, except Conri had immediately retaliated with something even better, making all of Sera's efforts null. He'd come up with a fake apology letter attempt, in which he'd written himself a note from Sera, detailing everything she'd supposedly done wrong over the last few months, including faking a kidnapping, tampering with their pack's crops, and spreading rumors about Conri and his family. Conri's parents had been quick to believe all these made-up facts, a lot of which had been based on real hardships their pack had faced. They had confronted Sera's parents in a communal meeting, including other packs, which had degenerated into a full-blown shouting match, in the middle of which Sera had stood perfectly dumbfounded. These back and forth went on for 2 years, during which Sera would come up with some form of revenge and an affronted Conri would retaliate with another better one. The circle never ending until Sera reached 11th, that is, her 11th birthday marked Conri's 13th. Unlike every 13-year-old wolf in the region, Conri was set to compete against other shifters his age in a full-day hunt in the woods. This rite of passage took place every year, and everyone expected the young wolf who brought back the biggest, most impressive bounty to be awarded a prize, thus bringing great honor to his pack. In everyone's mind, there was no doubt this would be Conri, the hunter with the most skills in this year's crop. Sera, not being old enough, wasn't set to participate, but this was her chance to finally get back at Conri, and she was determined to win despite the odds. That's why weeks before the hunt, she visited the magician once more. Sera had entered Merlin's shop with all the determination of righteous fury, explaining how she wished for him to make her strong enough to win. "You're willing to risk losing your darling twin brother over this?" Merlin had tisked. "I didn't take you for being this lazy." "I'm not lazy," Sera had protested, clenching her fists. "Then why come to me with this request when you could very well win this hunt by honing your skills the traditional way?" "I can't." Sera shut her mouth. She was about to say there was no way she could win by herself. She was younger, not good enough. "Would it really be winning if you bested that Conri of yours because of magic?" Merlin had observed. Sera had gritted her teeth, but weeks before the hunt, she secretly obtained the plans for the event. She pored over them by night, memorizing every detail, every location where the game was likely to roam. By day she'd shift into her wolf form and venture into the forest, mapping out the terrain, noting the tracks of deer and the denser, riskier trails where bears might roam. She trained herself to turn more quickly, to move quietly, to blend into the shadows and leaves. One crisp morning, her breath visible in the chilly air, Seraphina stumbled upon a bear. Her heart raced as she observed it from a distance, noting its size and the power in its limbs. Over the following days, she tracked the beast while well in her human form, to not alert it of her scent, learning its habits and patterns. On the day of the hunt, Seraphina rose before dawn, her body tense with anticipation. She entered the woods separately, following the faint trail she had memorized, diverging from the path taken by Conri and the other young wolves. Her journey through the underbrush was silent, her heart pounding as she waited for it to appear. And then, with the sun just beginning to peek over the horizon, it did. The battle took longer than Sera had anticipated, and overwhelmed with exertion, she caught herself thinking more than once that perhaps she'd been a fool taking on such dangerous prey. Perhaps she wouldn't be able to defeat it, and furthermore, perhaps it would defeat her. Was there any chance left for escape at this point? Only the thought of Conri winning the competition should she not return with despair to best him kept her going, despite the burning sensation in her muscles and the fear racing her heart. She couldn't let Conri win. She wouldn't allow it, and this bear stood between her and her goal. This bear had to die. As she emerged into the clearing, dragging its massive body behind her, the crowd's reaction was instant. Stunned silence gave way to uproarious applause and cheering. She dropped her bounty at the center of the clearing, standing tall, her chest heaving with exertion. The elders, including her own parents, exchanged shocked glances before the head elder stepped forward, his face a mask of reluctant admiration. He lifted the garland traditionally meant for Conri and placed it around Seraphina's neck in recognition of an unprecedented feat. He announced, his voice booming over the crowd, "We crown Seraphina as this year's victor." Clara hadn't expected the overall uproar her victory would cause, nor did she think she'd become somewhat of a local prodigy, setting herself apart not just as a participant but as a legend in the making. And truth be told, she didn't much care for it, at least not nearly as much as the look of pure shock on Conri's face, the only real reward for all of Cira's effort. She lifted her chin, her eyes meeting his. In this light his irises were green, wide with surprise, resentment, and anger, but there was also a hint of something new, something dangerously close to admiration that went straight to Cira's head, making her feel dizzy with pride. Her heart beat wildly against her rib cage. And little did she know she'd grow rather addicted to this feeling, though unfortunately for her, nothing but Conri's admiring gaze could procure it to her. Clara is 13 when she wins her first fight against an older beta wolf from her pack. In a fight, she is an aggressive fighter, a force to be reckoned with, and despite how young she is still, she's confident she'll only grow stronger. She now wears her hair tightly back into a severe braid, one that she hates taking down even when in the shower, for it still hurts that her hair hasn't grown back to its full length. Her father has started pitting her and her twin brother Edmund against each other, testing their abilities. He hasn't said anything outright, but Clara knows he's trying to determine which one of them will be best suited to become alpha, a decision he wouldn't be making before they've reached their 18th birthday. Though there is no doubt in Cira's mind that she will be the victor, she'll accept nothing less, for across the woods where Conri's pack reside, it is already looking like he'll become the next alpha. And if Conri is to be an alpha, then so is Clara, for it would likely kill her to be less than him. He'd never admire her again if she isn't his equal at the very least, if not better than him in every way, and then what could possibly be her reason for confronting him any longer if she wasn't his rival? Though she hasn't had much luck with defeating him at anything these days, Clara may have bested an older male in a fight, and she may get the upper hand on her brother over and over again, but Conri is a different story. The two of them have taken to sneaking into the woods at night to hunt or fight, ever since Cira's triumph 2 years ago. It's just the two of them. Their competition has outgrown the need to bring other members of their pack into this. The others don't matter, but what used to be somewhat closely tied brawls from which a victory wasn't easily discernible has started to shift. Clara may be tall for her age, but she is lean and slim with baby fat sticking to her cheeks still. Conri, on the other hand, is a teenager now. He's getting taller and broader, his muscles growing fuller and more defined with each passing day, and honing a newfound strength Clara sometimes feels coursing beneath her fingers when their bodies collide in battle. It's getting easier for him to twist her arms, to pin her down or against a tree, his hazel eyes gleaming with satisfaction. She fears that soon he'll grow bored of her, when Clara simply won't make for a notable adversary any longer. Cira's father is always telling her that you're only worth what you can do. So she tells Conri about her latest victory between one hit and the next. He taunts that others are surely letting her win, for her skills are lacking and her technique barely passable. "You're the one holding back your punches," Clara retorts, because she isn't a fool. She hates him for holding back, she hates him for having broad shoulders while she is stuck at the very early stages of puberty, as lean as ever, without the hint of a curve having appeared. Not that it's breasts or hips she's after, they wouldn't do her much good in a fight. It's the heightened strength that'll come with age that she's craving for. If the gap in stature between her and Conri has become too pronounced, it is unacceptable that he tries to hide it from her. Clara has never felt as small and inconsequential. If anything, at least try to hide better, she sneers, making him fall down with a well-placed swipe of her leg. "If you're not going to fight me, then don't waste my time." She rolls them over, straddling Conri and pinning him to the ground in a move she's not quite sure how she manages. Conri is blinking at her, confusion and surprise marking his features as Clara stares, not believing her own luck. Her thighs are tight around Conri's, her hands holding onto his shoulders. A faint, though fascinating, blush begins to spread across her adversary's cheekbones. Sera's fingers loosen somewhat against the fabric of his shirt, for she is distracted by how dark Conri's gaze becomes, dark with something she cannot name. It's a new sort of gaze, not so different from the somewhat admiring ones she'd received from time to time for her efforts in the past, but also entirely new nonetheless. Conri is holding himself still, except for the quick rise and fall of his chest. His mouth is partially opened as he breathes heavily. Sera's mouth is very dry and her throat very tight. She isn't sure why exactly. Perhaps the change in Conri's scent, it's spiking up dangerously, thickening around her, making everything feel oppressively slow, though not entirely unpleasant. Sera can't help but sway forward, though at the slightest movement Conri flips her over, pinning her to the ground in his stead, using all of his greater body mass to keep her still. "Stop moving," he groans against her neck. "You stop moving," Sera replies rather lamely, her words coming out much more whiny than expected, and then she feels the graze of Conri's teeth against her neck. Sera's eyes widen in disbelief and she grabs onto his hair to move him away. "Get off me," she growls, genuine fear clawing at her senses. Conri complies with her demand, moving swiftly like he's been burnt. "Were you about to?" Sera can't bring herself to say the words. He couldn't have been about to bite her, right? She may be only 13, but she knows what a bite mark entails, a claiming of sorts, a total act of dominance, one only acceptable if done with the intention to mate. The thought makes Seraphina's head spin, torn between fear, shame, and strange disappointment. When Conri protests vehemently, "Of course not," he says this as the mere idea appalls him, which good. Sera has no desire to be mated at 13, least of all to Conri of all people. "But I scared you," Conri murmurs, looking suddenly so regretful you'd think Sera were something fragile to be looked after. Humiliation burns bright inside her stomach. "Shut up," she snaps, quickly drying away tears she hadn't noticed until now. She gets to her feet in one swift movement and runs off. The next night, Conri doesn't show up at their meeting place. They don't see much of each other after this for a while. Sera is 15 when she sees Conri again. Well, that's not entirely true. She'd seen him in passing the last 2 years, there just hadn't been any words properly exchanged between them. A couple of insults or mean-spirited jabs here and there, yes, but even that was pretty tame compared to the more physical fights they used to engage in, though his absence and growing indifference have been slowly driving Sera insane, so much so that she'd started dreaming of him at night, dreams that unfortunately stuck with her when she'd wake in the early hours of the morning, breathless and panting. She dreams of meeting in the forest, of fighting him and besting him, of finding that admiration in his gaze once more, and then, in almost every dream, Conri bites her in the neck, prompting Sera to wake up in a startled gasp. Memories of his teeth against her skin, real sensations mixed with more imagined versions of the event, haunt her during the day to the point where she sometimes thinks of nothing else. She wants to be rid of these dreams. She doesn't want them and she can't think of any solutions to make it happen besides perhaps magic. "Could you take my dreams away?" she'd asked the magician this time. I'd been present when she'd asked, confused as to what type of nightmares could plague a 15-year-old's dreams to the point where she'd been desperate enough to make a life-ruining wish. "Teenagers," Merlin had commented when I'd raised the subject with him later on, Sera having long departed the shop, so dramatic. Though that isn't what he told Sera. Dreams reflect unconscious feelings or thoughts. The best way to get rid of them is to confront them. "How?" Sera had snapped, crossing her arms. She was young still, but quite impressive, a force of nature I wouldn't have liked to reckon with. Merlin found her highly amusing. "Lyra, what do you dream about?" he then asked me, roping me in their conversation. "My father mostly," I'd replied honestly, for Seraphina Hargrove's presence was so imposing and oppressive that I'd found myself eager for her to leave. She wasn't the first shifter I'd ever encountered, but she was certainly a powerful one, that was for sure. "Your father?" she'd pressed with a raise of her eyebrows. "He died recently," I explained. "A dream of seeing him again, of him being alive." Sera had paused slightly as she processed my words, nodded her head curtly, and left, a bright blush gracing her cheeks. Unknown to me, my words had struck a sensitive chord, for it had made Sera realize confronting Conri for what he'd almost done that night in the woods was something she desired, perhaps even needed, and it terrified her, which is why she doesn't dare approach or meet his eyes when she sees him next. The setting is a lake on which a gathering is being held late into the night, and by gathering Sera is no fool, she knows this is going to be a full-blown party. She doesn't tend to go out much, she's too busy training, and when she isn't training, following her father to different meetings, negotiations, and planning, all regarding pack duties. The little time she has left for herself is spent on her education, which she receives from home like most other teens of the pack. If Sera doesn't go out much, neither does her brother, but he's been invited by a friend from an allied pack which has settled a couple hours, dropped her from their own, and Edmund, Sera's brother, being very much into said friend, there was simply no chance of him missing on the chance of him missing on the chance of her vision. Sera, he told her, I'm telling you, this is it. Valentina's my mate. I know it. Sera had rolled her eyes, perfectly uninterested in mates, and all the drama that went with looking for one, especially at their age. In her opinion, finding a mate had more to do with securing a strategic match that would profit the pack than finding someone attractive. Their father had made it clear he would allow nothing less for his children, one of which was their future alpha. Edmund was a fool if he thought Valentina would suit his father's business objectives. Despite it though, her brother's hopeful looks and enthusiastic grins had roped her in, along with a couple more friends from the pack, into accompanying him for moral support. All 16s had fled their bed late into the evening to drive off unnoticed to the lake. What they hadn't been expecting was that Valentina's pack had friends from another pack themselves, who were good friends with Conri's pack, who'd been invited to join in the celebration. Conri is even taller and broader than before, being almost 18 now, and apparently attractive if all the looks he's receiving from different girls are any indications. Sera doesn't know what they see in him personally. He has perfectly average hazel eyes that turn a warm green depending on the light, but she's seen much nicer eyes somewhere sometimes. Certainly he is well built, but so are most young men his age, and his brown hair is as messy as when they were young. Maybe it's his smile. He flashes a sort of lopsided grin at people he likes, not so much at Sera that bears a hint of mischief. Sure, that aggravates her, but perhaps other girls interpret his smiles as flirtations, a hint of something more. Sera frowns at the idea, which she deems unacceptable as soon as it crosses her mind, and decides not to dwell on. Maybe it's his light freckles. Conri Sachs has freckles. Amalia, one of Sera's good friends, asks when she shared her thoughts with her. I hadn't even noticed. Sera rolls her eyes because how would anyone miss any of Conri's freckles, mostly located on the bridge of his nose? She has no idea. No, she decides, watching him walk around to fetch himself a beer, joking at a comment another makes. It isn't about his looks. If people stare, it's because of the confidence he exudes, the way he carries himself and speaks, already laced with the effortless authority befitting an alpha, a quiet dominance everyone around the lake instinctively recognizes. That night, Sera dreams that she is back by the lake, but this time it is her everyone stares at, that is the subject of their admiration, and her that holds her head high in dominance, for she too is a future alpha. Conri is among the crowd, subjected to her authority like every other, except it is him, and his subjugation makes Sera's wolf pee with so much pride that she wakes up feeling all-powerful and liberated in control. She knows what she needs to do. She's matched Conri's strategic skills as a child, she now needs to match his social skills as a teen. Maybe then he'll stop treating her like a youngling and see her for the rival she is once more, a rival he'd never dare put his teeth upon again. Sera is about to turn 16 when she enacts her plan, a couple of weeks after seeing Conri jam everyone around a campfire on the lake shore. The night is one for another party, though this time it's being held in a club, one Sera has no trouble getting into, for if she'll be turning 16 in only a couple hours, she doesn't look it. Seraphina is tall with long, well-shaped legs, and with enough makeup can easily pass for a young adult. She is pretty enough, she knows, maybe not the most beautiful young woman in the pack, for her features are perhaps too cutting and lacking a softer, more feminine edge to fully earn her the title, but she has nice full lips, dark grey eyes, and most importantly, a body she's caught practically every single member of her pack staring at more than once. She is satisfied with the amount of lingering looks she receives when she gets to the club, growing more and more insistent as she starts to dance. Her brother a little less so, for it makes him feel uncomfortable, but that's his problem. She's stuck between two boys, both slightly older than her, though Sera has no doubt she'd easily best them should they try anything, and so feels nothing but ease. When her eyes meet Conri's as he's getting a drink from the bar, his eyes widen slightly before his mouth purses into a grim line. The hint of a frown grazes his features, and his body twitches imperceptibly, like he's going to walk over to her. Sera's heartbeat picks up expectantly, but then one of Conri's friends, a wolf from Valentina's pack she's seen before, lightly punches his shoulder, diverting his attention. The next thing Sera knows, they're walking off to join a small group seated in a booth. Sera's heart sinks in consternation, humiliation coloring her cheeks. That's it? That's all she gets for her efforts, barely a glance from her rival, only marked with slight irritation instead of the full-blown, all-consuming anger she's been used to growing up. This won't do, not in a million years. If Conri thinks he's better than her and her pack now, to the point where he won't even entertain their rivalry, then Sera has to remind him who he's dealing with. She observes him discreetly, the way he seems at ease with this other wolf from Valentina's pack, the one that dared steal away his attention. They seem like good friends apparently. This friend is more interesting than she is. Well then, the second Conri's little buddy walks away from the group, heading towards the bar again. She makes her way over there too, casually settling her body close to her target's. It isn't long before he sees her, his scent spiking up with an obvious interest that makes Sera want to roll her eyes. "Hey, I've seen you before I think," he greets her rather lamely. "I'm Craig." Sera doesn't know what Conri sees in someone so ineloquent, but whatever, I don't think so. "I'd remember," she says, giving him a wink that thickens the syrupy desire lacing his scent even further. "This might be kind of forward, and you can totally say no. But can I get you a beer?" Craig asks, eyes stuck on Sera's lips. "I don't want a beer," she replies, granting him a small smile that makes Craig flush. "Maybe a cocktail?" Sera shakes her head, batting her eyelashes at him subtly. "A glass of wine?" Craig asks, sounding slightly breathless. Sera laughs, bringing her lips against his right ear. "How about we go somewhere quiet instead?" she murmurs against the skin. Craig isn't Sera's first kiss, and he isn't her worst. Just like all the other kisses she'd received before, she didn't care much for it, but at least he wasn't forcing his tongue down her throat, so really, it could be worse. That said, Sera hasn't got all night, so she's carefully angling their bodies right in front of Conri's booth. And not even a minute later, there is no mistaking the sudden but powerful surge of anger that cloys Conri's familiar scent even from where Sera is standing. The angry spicy tinge only grows stronger as he undoubtedly walks over, to the point where it fills Sera's nose and clouds her mind. Just as Craig deepens their kiss, a small embarrassing whine escapes from her, definitely caused by the kiss, which she is absolutely more focused on than Conri's overpowering scent. "Get off her," Conri snaps, pulling Craig away so abruptly that his friend loses his balance and would have fallen down if not for the pillar towering behind him. His face is twisted in a sneer, his body taut with tension, but he isn't looking at Sera. This makes her want to scream. "What the hell, man?" Craig asks, eyes widening in shock. "What the fuck is your problem?" "My problem?" Conri looks inches from throwing in a punch. She's 16 years old. "You think it's fine taking advantage of a minor?" Sera rolls her eyes, holding back a sigh. "I didn't know she was 16, Craig winces, giving Sera a vaguely apologetic glance. "I mean, she doesn't look like she." He waves a hand at Sera, making Conri's anger spiral all the more, which doesn't escape Craig's notice. Wolves know not to anger stronger, more dominant wolves. It's a survival instinct practically written in their DNAs, and being obviously no match for Conri, Craig visibly shrinks, noticing his rival's furious stance. "Sorry, Sera," he tells her, hoping this will appease Conri somewhat. It does not. "Don't you fuck look at her," he growls, pouncing towards Craig, only to be abruptly pulled back by the arm. "Enough," Sera tells him, lacing her words with enough command she knows that'll secure his attention. "I wanted him to kiss me. Leave him alone." Conri's jaw clenches in aggression, though this time it is focused solely on Sera. For the first time in 3 years his gaze is dark and brooding, his posture downright aggressive, and his scent it goes right to Sera's head. She'd missed this, she realizes, slightly confused at the thought. "Sera," he mutters, breathing through his nose like he's trying to regain his cool. "Can't you smell how much he?" Conri is shaking in barely contained anger, and their faces are inches apart, his eyes shining a bright gold. Sera half considers warning him about it, because a human could notice, but she's feeling too good about finally being the focus of his hatred again. "He wanted more than to kiss you," Conri mutters, his fingers encircling Sera's arm like a warning that comes off as entirely too possessive. Sera's wolf is practically preening with satisfaction. I'd be happy to let him fuck me, she smiles purposely crude. Conri's grip tightens to the point of pain, and for a brief moment, every instinct in Sera's body warns her of something she can't quite understand. His eyes descend upon her bare neck with a fixated intent, and the insane thought that he's about to bite her blooms inside of Sera, whose breath freezes into her lungs. Then Conri lets go of her abruptly, walking off, and she's left standing there, breathless and dumbfounded. Sera is 16, but she feels 8 again, like that day he'd stuck gum into her hair, and she's mortified to realize she's going to cry. But then he turns back around, walks back to her, and barks, "Our place in the woods tomorrow night." Triumph washes over Sera. Seraphina is 17 when her meetings with Conri in the woods take a different turn. They barely speak before they come to blows that night, Sera being quick to taunt her rival into throwing the first punch. He's furious with her, she can tell, because she'd succeeded in diverting yet another one of his friends' attention. She wants him to know she could divert anyone's attention from him, should she put her mind to it. They look at Conri only because she allowed it, but should she wish, she could steal that away from him at any given moment. Conri is strong, Sera is fast, the two of them skilled fighters that play on the other's weaknesses with instinctual ease, honed from years of watching and battling each other. She throws a punch, he parries, he goes for a kick, and she spins their body back into a safer position for her to keep her stance. Their fight is closely tied, and it seems to go on forever, their breath mingling together and echoing through the woods. Sera's back is sore from colliding with tree trunks so often, her blood coursing quickly beneath her skin. "I think we're finished here," Conri says earlier than expected, when it looks like neither of them will get the upper hand. There's a sort of tired resignation in his eyes that twists Sera's heart from the fear of what it might mean. "Finished?" she growls, lashing out with a quick kick of her leg, which Conri easily avoids. The thought of them being finished has her going nearly blind with anger. How come he's still treating her like a youngling to be coddled? She's all grown up now, she matches his skills blow for blow. He doesn't have to hold himself back with her. Can't he see they're equals? She screams in rage, throwing herself at Conri and toppling the two of them to the ground. They struggle briefly, their eyes meet, and Sera isn't sure how the kiss begins, just that she is now grabbing at Conri's short hair to deepen it, drinking every moan from his lips like she would water. This is a kiss unlike any other Sera has ever shared, a reclaiming of sorts, forceful and angry. Neither of them is worried about its reception. They'd both been past the point of hesitation the second their lips had made contact. Sharp teeth are nipping at Sera's lower lip, perhaps growing harsher as Conri realizes she can kiss just as deeply as he can. His touch becomes bruising in its ferocity, as if hoping to let Sera know if he isn't her first, then he's to be her best, which she thinks, trying to get him closer. He most certainly is, though she'd rather die than let him know that. She brings her legs up around his waist. Conri leaves her mouth to suck burning kisses on her neck, his hands gripping her thighs. His name is torn from her lips in panting moans. His scent mingles with hers, enveloping her in what she's old enough now to identify as desire, thick and syrupy and so good. She can do nothing else but buck into the solid press of his body, rejoicing at the noises he makes as she tightens her arms around his neck. She doesn't protest when he tears away her top or any other article of clothing she's wearing, helping him remove his in turn. She doesn't protest when his eyes meet hers, searching for permission, and she doesn't protest when a sharp pain courses through her shortly after. She encourages it, even fueling Conri on with her words and hands and lips, for how could she bring herself to do otherwise when he is looking at her like that, like Sera is everything. Once she is back inside the confines of her room later, alone under the covers of her bed, only then does regret begin to tighten her throat. They shouldn't have done that, she tells herself. What they've done is something that should be kept between mates, or at the very least people who aren't natural enemies. Will Conri even respect her as a rival now that he's had her like that? Will he look at her differently? Will he even come back to meet with her tomorrow to fight her as he should? He does come back, and they do fight, though it doesn't last very long, not with their bodies pressed so closely together, her scent still present on Conri's skin, mingling with his, not with the way his eyes flutter shut for a moment, lips parting when he detects his own one imprinted onto Sera. His hands on her, no less gripping, becomes strained with a different sort of fight, one Sera is unequipped to rebuke, unwilling even, if Conri is going to keep looking at her like he'll never look at anything else ever again. The following night, their pretense of a fight is even shorter, And the one after that they don't even pretend, their lips colliding instantly into a demanding kiss, their hands roaming over each other's bodies, hurried and demanding. The simplest of touch causing Sera to shiver. There's no pain anymore, only pleasure she hadn't thought could exist. And new emotions just as intense and all-consuming as anger, though she doesn't know how to name them. Every night, Sera comes back home telling herself this was the last time, that they shouldn't be doing what they're doing, but the following day, as soon as the sun sets, she finds herself growing restless, running away to the woods to Conri the second she's certain no one will notice, eager for his hands to be on her again, to feel his grip turn punishing when their lips meet again after being apart for the day. She thinks perhaps after some time the novelty of this experience will fade, and with it any desire on her part for it to continue. She doesn't dare think of how it would make her feel should it dull on Conri's end. She will not think of that, for once it does, what will she become? Merlin isn't in the shop the next time Sera comes to visit. I'm alone, going through books distractedly when she enters, eyes wild with something I don't understand. When will he be back? She mutters, closing her eyes in resignation when I tell her he's gone off somewhere for God knows how long. I need him to free me of this insanity. She seems distressed, fevered almost, as she begins to pace around the shop like a beast trapped in a cage. What did you want him to do exactly? I asked, hoping to deter her, just as I've seen Merlin manage to accomplish a couple of times before now. I want to be rid of my... Sera can't bring herself to say the words and falls quiet, heat grazing her features. Never mind, she says. Thank you for listening. If this story touched your heart, give it a like and subscribe for more beautiful tales. Tap the next thumbnail to continue your journey.